Quincy, the Cypher. Prepare for another all-nighter.
On the Talk of Chicago, 1690 WVON.
It shouldn't surprise anybody that the Pacers have the ability to be in first place in this division. I hope no one is like scratching their head. I mean, given how the scenario played out in their division with Derrick Rose not playing this season, the Pacers have gotten better every single year. So this should be of no surprise. Now, I will say this. On the grand stage, if you watched any of the games today, like with OKC against the Clippers, Heat and Knicks, the one thing we talked about, around the All-Star break time was that this is the time that playoff caliber teams need to play consistent basketball and get expected wins. And the Heat are rolling at that, looking at 14 straight wins, 6 straight road wins. They're playing good basketball, moving towards getting into the playoffs.
I saw somebody posted they're peaking right now. I'm like, dude, they won the title last year. They're better this year. They're not peaking. That's the scary thing about them. They're going to get better as the season goes on, I think. I have a feeling. I don't see anybody stopping this Heat thing. Definitely not those two teams we saw playing after that, Oklahoma City or L.A.
And that gets back to playing consistent, good basketball. OKC has struggled a bit. Like, did you see the matchup they had against the Denver Nuggets?
Yeah.
Once again, the Nuggets are the team that we talk about that take good teams
for
the stretch. And I said,
when
we were talking about the Lakers being able to creep back into the playoff pictures, and I said the losses you can probably chalk up is going to be to the Denver Nuggets, just because they're that team that tests everyone. They're not going to win it all. They're not going to take it, but they take teams to the brink. And that was a good win they got against OKC at the end of the day. So even against the Clippers, I mean, granted, OKC got that win, but it was a very rigorous win for them to get.
Right, they blew a big lead in that game. Had Ibaka punching Blake Griffin in the balls. I don't know what that was about. That was.
He did. As Mike Tirico was like, that should be a flagrant too.
Yeah.
Just like,
in more ways than one.
Do you think really? But I have to say this. Outside being a Bulls fan, not expecting a lot from it, it's interesting to watch how some of the other teams are unfolding, especially in the West. I think I'm more invested in the West this particular season than I am in seeing what happens in the East, because for once you can actually say that the Western Conference is far more stacked.
Way more.
Than the Eastern Conference is. I mean, the Denver Nuggets are competitive. Just a lot of teams.
Look at Golden State, a team like the Warriors with Steph Curry doing what he did this week. But they're an afterthought in the West. Put them in the East. Yeah. They'd be a contender.
Steph Curry, it's like, is he going to waste away? He's so talented. And it's like, somehow they have to get better. Or to me, that's a waste of talent.
But I think they are getting better. They're young. They're in a good
spot.
They
are young.
I like the
Golden State. They're one of the youngest teams in the NBA.
They have David Lee, another good young player. They have some good young players there. That kid Thompson, he's pretty good. So I like the Warriors. I like them a lot better than the team we have up on the screen right now in red. So
I thought you were referring to the Pacers. No.
No, not at all. The Pacers, Danny Granger makes them legitimate to scare the Heat. I didn't say beat. I said scare. He makes them legitimate when he's playing well.
Here's what happens if you get a matchup with the Heat and the Pacers. They make the Heat work is what it comes down to. It becomes a more grueling or exhausting series than it needs to be, opposed to just kind of being a walk in the park. They have to work harder to get to win the series, which may not seem like a big deal, but then when you move through and your next component is really truly a contender, you're a little worn out when it's all said and done. And that's what the Pacers do. I mean, we saw that last year, how well they played in the playoffs.
And it's funny, speaking of playoffs, a couple of years ago, just looking at these two teams playing out, the Bulls and the Pacers, 2 years ago, the Pacers were a little engine that could. They won 37 games and gave the Bulls a tough 5-game series. It's only 5 games, but those were some physical 5 games that they played. And now, looking at them, the Pacers have obviously surpassed the Bulls, even though the Bulls are dealing with quote-unquote injuries. But it's just ironic to see where these teams are in a 2-year span just from that playoff series to now. The Pacers are the team that the Bulls are chasing. And even I think with the Bulls being completely healthy, I still think that would be the case. Personally, I think the Pacers are a better team when the Bulls are at full strength.
They definitely play them very aggressive.
Yeah.
I mean, it gets back to it, and it's hard for the average fan to wrap their mind around is thinking that a team plays up to the talent that's on the floor with them, and that happens sometimes night to night when you have a long season. That it doesn't mean that teams don't go out and give 100%, but if you happen to be the Heat, and you're playing the Bobcats. Do you really exhaust yourself? Not necessarily, but the Bobcats exhaust themselves because there's something they want to prove in that matchup.
No doubt.
So I think it does have a lot to playing up or playing down to the level of talent that you have on the floor that night with you.